Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you all going today? I hope you're all doing well and having a fabulous week. I'm so sorry I've been really late with this true crime episode for today. I've been telling you guys I've been doing it for weeks, and then I went to sit down and film it the other week and realized the audio wasn't working. So if you had watched my Princess Polly haul last week, then you would have known that. But it's okay, we are here today. I have a true crime video for you, and I will definitely be more consistent with the weeks coming up. So definitely subscribe if you want to see more true crime videos from me. In today's true crime video, we will be diving into the case of Shafilea Ahmed, and one of you guys actually suggested this case in the comment section on one of my other videos. So thank you so much if you suggested this case for me to cover today. I have actually heard of this case before, and I did really want to cover it here on my channel anyway. I was really interested in covering this case on my channel because I have done a similar case that had a similar theme of honor killings on my channel before, and I just thought, you know what, I know I don't have a ton of subscribers or anything, but I just thought if I could shed some light on these types of cases, maybe at least 5 people can learn something new, and that would be really great. Just maybe things to look out for. In the previous case, the 2 girls that were the protagonists of the case were school kids, and this girl is also in school. So young people, maybe if you notice something is going on, maybe they're having some family troubles, you know, it's good to know what to look out for, I guess. And I just thought maybe me sharing some of these cases can shed some light to just at least 5 people or 10 people. It doesn't have to be the whole world, but at least maybe some people can learn something new. I just want to say, as I always do, I'm in no way professional. I don't work in any areas of crime investigation or law. I just simply like to review and talk about different crime cases from all over the world, and all this information is from online sources that are available to you guys and the general public. So I would really appreciate it if you don't come for me so harshly in the comments section if I have accidentally said a name wrong, or a date got mixed up, or you've heard a different side of the story that maybe I wasn't able to find online. I am just getting this information from online sources. So yeah, I do my best to get all the information as accurate and up to date as possible. No disrespect is ever intended towards anyone I may mention in this video or any of my other videos for that fact. So with all that being said, let's just dive on right into it. So firstly, let's introduce the main young woman of this case, Shafilea Ahmed. Shafilea Ahmed was a 17-year-old girl who lived in Cheshire, England. Shafilea's ambition in life was to become a lawyer or a barrister, and she would often talk about wanting to go to university. So in my opinion, she had really great dreams that she was trying to strive for. She did very well at school grade-wise, and she had a large circle of friends. She was quite popular, just seemed like a really lovely girl. Shafilea was born to her Pakistani parents, Iftikhar and Fazana Ahmed, and all up they had 5 children, I believe. So they had 4 daughters and 1 son, and Shafilea was the eldest of the girls. So Shafilea's father, Iftikhar, had actually come over to the UK before he was with Shafilea's mother, Fazana. So Iftikhar had married and settled down with a Danish woman and actually had a child with her. So I believe Iftikhar and this Danish woman had a son together, and then when Iftikhar married Fazana, they had their 4 daughters, and Shafilea was the eldest daughter, I believe. So in an interview I found online with this Danish woman, Iftikhar's first wife, she says that Iftikhar really embraced like Western lifestyle and culture. He really got into it. He was really happy with his life. Well, it seemed. He'd go out, you know, drinking and partying and clubbing and dancing, and he just really embraced the whole lifestyle. And he was very excited when she told him that they were expecting their first child, their son. Due to family pressures, Iftikhar actually got up and left and went back to Pakistan to marry his cousin Fazana in an arranged marriage. And he did this while he was still married to his first wife. wife. And this was because there was a lot of family pressure where he came from in his family. They were not happy, first off, that he had gone off and married into a westernized culture or married a westernized woman. But also, apparently, Fazana was just having an absolute fit about this because she said she was going to kill herself if she couldn't marry Iftikhar, because this has been in plans since she was a little girl. I guess this planned an arranged marriage to Iftikhar. She was like, well, I'm going to kill myself if I can't marry this man that I've been set to marry for years now. And that's that. So Iftikhar came back and said, okay, like, yes, I'll marry you. And his first wife, understandably, left with their son because she was like, well, like, I'm out. So then Iftikhar and Fazana, who were cousins, got married in an arranged marriage, and then they actually went back to the UK, and Fazana started having children right away. I'm pretty sure Fazana was actually pregnant even while Iftikhar was still with his first wife, the Danish woman. So yeah, that is another reason why she left. She was like, no, I'm out. If you're gonna marry another woman, then I'm gone. I'm taking our son as well. So Iftikhar and Fazana brought up their children in very, very strict and traditional Pakistani ways, because that is where they were from originally, and their tradition, their culture, their religion, everything about their Pakistani life impacted the way they brought up all their children. Fazana very much had the idea of raising her children the way they did in her rural village that she grew up in Pakistan. Very quite harsh, I guess, and very, very strict traditions that they had to follow. And this ended up being, as I said, quite harsh on the children, but in this specific case we're talking about Shafilea. So as Shafilea was growing up, as I had already said, she attended a school, and it was a local school in the UK, so as you can imagine, it was quite westernized. She associated with many Western people. She had many Western friends. As I already said, she was quite popular amongst her classmates. It was a co-ed school as well, so naturally she was a little interested in boys as she was going through her teenage years, and she had ambitions for her future. She wanted to work in law. She wanted to do further study. She just had, all this opportunity around her that she wanted to really take hold of. Now, I'm just assuming, I don't know because I'm not a parent, but I'm just assuming that if your child, had a really great circle of friends, was doing really well in school, wanted to do further education, like go to university or college or do anything like that, and wanted to enter in a really good career field when they were older, I think most parents would be very, very pleased with that, right? Well, for Shafilea, this unfortunately was not the case at all. Iftikhar and Fazana were nothing but horrified that Shafilea was associating with Western people. And can I just say, if they were so opposed to her having friends of Western culture, then why did they move her into a westernized local UK school? I was just wondering because I didn't stumble upon that on my research, and I'm sure many people would have asked that question. If you didn't want her to be friends with any Western people, then why'd you send her to a more westernized kind of school? But anyway, I don't know, and I don't live in the UK, so I don't really know what kind of culture schools there are over there, but anyway, Shafilea was in no way allowed to date, but she was definitely absolutely not allowed to date or associate with Western boys. A big, big no-no. They were not even pleased that Shafilea had dreams and aspirations for herself to make herself successful in her own life later as an adult, and they just were horrified that she had ambitions for the future. She was just not allowed to have dreams. Shafilea actually really liked experimenting with different clothes and makeup, just as most normal teenagers do when they're growing up. And of course, she's watching all of her Western friends experiment with makeup and wearing different clothes, and they're not wearing traditional Pakistani attire, they're in the UK. So she wanted to experiment with all of that as well, and she would get in big trouble if she ever did. She was not allowed to experiment with makeup or fashion. Her parents expected her to wear traditional Pakistani conservative attire. And makeup was just a flat out no. So no life, basically. She had no freedom to do what she pleased now and in her future. and her parents just wanted her to be a good girl in their eyes, obey their strict traditional cultural Pakistani beliefs, and they just wanted her to be the honorable daughter that she should be, or what they thought an honorable daughter should be. Iftikhar and Fazana's plan for Shafilea was already set out for her when she was at a very young age. They were going to follow the strict traditional Pakistani ways. They would arrange a marriage for her. It would most likely be a cousin that was a lot older than Shafilea, and that is that. She would be left with the husband. Shafilea knew all about arranged marriages, obviously coming from a Pakistani family. She was absolutely horrified about arranged marriages. She did not want that. She just wanted to find her own partner that she loved one day in a natural way. She did not want to be set up with a cousin. She didn't want to be left in Pakistan with a husband she didn't know. It's a little ironic to me that Iftikhar originally ran away with a wife of his choosing, a Western wife at that, and then he eventually bowed to the family pressure and came back and did an arranged marriage. But it's just a little ironic that he did that and now he's not allowing his own daughter to do that, even though she wants to find her own love, her own husband, her own way. Might not be a Pakistani man, but yeah, it's just a little ironic to me. Iftikhar and Fazana thought that Shafilea was not being the ideal daughter that they wanted or that she was supposed to be. She was not being an honorable daughter to them. She didn't want to do things their way. She didn't want to wear their clothes. She associated with the wrong people. She didn't want an arranged marriage. And she just was not being honorable. She was bringing shame to them in their eyes. Well, to them and their reputation, they thought, in the community. And this often led to Shafilea being very harshly punished and abused by her parents. At the age of 11, Shafilea ran away from home for the first time, I believe. She did return that same day, however. She would run away multiple times throughout her teenage years growing up, but she would always be guilted into coming back and manipulated by her parents. And they would say, you know, the shame, it's bringing the shame on our family and our reputation in our community and our beliefs. You need to come back to be an honorable daughter. And this was just emotional abuse as well. Fazana seemed to be like the dominating member of the family. She seemed to be really pushing all these traditions and beliefs on all the children, but Shafilea, obviously we're talking about Shafilea in this case, so she seemed to be like kind of the brains behind it. Iftikhar was 100% a willing participant of the abuse that Shafilea suffered at the hands of Iftikhar and Fazana, but Fazana definitely seemed to be like that dominating matriarch kind of figure. As the years went on and Shafilea got older, the verbal and physical abuse just continued and got progressively worse, and often at times Shafilea would have physical markings on her body from where her parents had physically abused her. And their mother, Fazana, would keep Shafilea home from school on purpose so that no one would suspect anything or see any markings and bruisings from the abuse. They would call her a whore and a prostitute if they ever saw her talking to a Western boy or had a boy's number in her phone, even though they were just friends from school. And she would get, again, verbally abused, but she would get very harsh physical abuse for that as punishment. Shafilea actually had a diary, and there was multiple entries in that apparently that said that all she wanted to do was please her parents, and it upset her that she couldn't please her parents the way they wanted. And it seemed as though she didn't hate her parents, even though they were awful to her. I don't know that though for sure. That's what I read online. I don't know Shafilea Ahmed personally, so maybe she did hate her parents for what they did to her. I don't know. But it seems as though all she wanted was to be able to get their approval, and it really made her upset that she couldn't get that from them. So as the years progressed, in 2002, they had kept Shafilea home for about a week or so without telling the school. One of Shafilea's teachers actually asked Iftikhar and Fazana where Shafilea was, because she hadn't turned up to school for a week and no one had notified the school that she was going to be away, and she was very concerned for her well-being. They just said like, no, she's just sick. Well, I don't know if they actually said that, I'm just telling the story, but they they just sort of said, you know, nah, she's just sick, she'll be at school soon. And then they made her go to school the following week to avoid any more suspicion. But really, Fazana and Iftikhar had kept her home because she had bruisings from physical abuse that they'd inflicted on her. About a month later in that same year, 2002, Shafilea actually runs away from home again, and Iftikhar and Fazana actually report her missing this time, and she was found quite soon after in a park with a bunch of bags with her, and it looked like she wasn't coming home, like she had a bunch of bags with her. So from there, Shafilea, her parents, Iftikhar and Fazana, and a teacher all had like a meeting together at the school to kind of figure out, you know, what's going on? Why are you running away so much? Is there something you're not telling us? What's going on in the family home? But I don't know what came from that meeting. I really tried to research online what was actually said in the meeting, what topics they talked about, but Shafilea ended up going back to the family home that same night after the meeting. So nothing really must have come from that meeting, or she was guilted back into going into the household because she felt trapped. So as time and time goes on, Shafilea is full aware that this arranged marriage is coming for her. Like she's getting older now. She's sort of getting to the age where they're going to marry her off. She knows it's coming and she just doesn't know how to get out. She does not want this arranged marriage at all. And her parents are starting to plan it, and their plan is to basically leave her in Pakistan, which she did not want at all. She also knew her parents were sick of her running away and not being an honorable daughter in their eyes and disobeying them all the time. So she knew this arranged marriage was coming. They were ready to send her off to Pakistan. So Shafilea runs away yet again in February, which is just a couple of months after the last runaway incident. And she actually goes to the council and registers as homeless because she just doesn't know what else to do. No one's listening to her. She doesn't want to go back to her toxic home environment. So she thought registering as homeless was just the last option for someone to please put her in a safe place. She tells the social services people, like, I have come here because my family is going to arrange a marriage for me and they're going to send me off to marry my cousin that I don't really know and leave me in Pakistan. So help me. She was, I believe, put in emergency hotel accommodation. However, she did have another meeting yet again at the school with Iftikhar, Fazana, herself, a social worker, and I think a teacher present. And what happened again? She returned home with her parents back to the horrible toxic environment that she's trying to get away from that same night. Like, oh, I don't know what went on in this meeting. Again, I tried to find out like what they talked about in this meeting or if she had options on what she wanted to do, but clearly she was just guilted straight back into the family home again. And obviously, as soon as she got home, she would have been abused because that was seen as dishonorable to run away from your family. It would be such an awful situation to be in. And I know it's not just her that goes through these situations. There is a lot of domestic violence and abuse situations in the world. So the fact that she just couldn't get out of it and no one could help her, a social worker, it just... So in February 2003, just a couple of months after this last incident happened, when Shafilea returned home from running away, Iftikhar and Fazana had planned a family holiday to Pakistan. Shafilea was scared. She refused to go because she knew, like, this ain't no family holiday. You're going to marry me off and you're going to leave me there. Iftikhar and Fazana were saying, like, no, it's not that. We are going for a family holiday. We're going to attend a family member's wedding. And that's what we're going to do there. Shafilea was really, really reluctant to go. She really didn't want to. She didn't trust that that's what they were going there to do. And she just refused. And this obviously made her parents furious. So they decided that if Shafilea was not going to get on the plane willingly, then they were going to drug her and put her on that plane themselves. Iftikhar had apparently been prescribed sleeping pills for his insomnia. I don't know if that's real or if he just, faked that he was not sleeping well to get the prescription. But either way, he was able to have access to sleeping pills and he crushed them up and put them in a glass of juice. Fazana then walked into Shafilea's room and gave the glass of juice to her, and Shafilea had no idea that it was laced. She just thought that her mother was being nice to her for once. So now that they have drugged Shafilea, her parents and 2 of her sisters, I believe, went to the airport and boarded the plane to Pakistan. Now, I just have a question. I don't know how they got Shafilea through the airport, like in a drugged state. I don't know how they got through airport security and how they boarded in the line and, went past all the air hostesses and everything without anyone noticing something was up with her. I know one of Shafelea's sisters, when she testified in court, she said that Shafilea at the airport was quite complicit and she was leaning a little bit on some luggage, like the luggage trolleys that they had. But she must have been drowsy, but not drowsy enough to not be able to walk or anything like that. So I don't know, because I just know that even if people are drunk at the airport, they don't let them board the planes. So I just thought it was a bit weird. If she was fully sedated, she would have looked a bit funny. I don't know, just food for thought. Obviously no one noticed and they boarded the plane and they did make it to Pakistan. So they arrive in Pakistan and then Shafilea kind of comes to. I don't know if she came to on the plane while they were flying there or if she came to afterwards. But she came to and realized what was happening and she was, of course, just absolutely miserable for the whole trip. She would have been quite frightened, I'm assuming, as well, because she just had in her head, I'm going to be married off any day now. I don't even know what's happening. She was miserable. Her parents had her passport and all her ID, so she couldn't even escape out of the country. She couldn't even fly herself home. They had everything of hers with them and they were just punishing her from the entire time. And it was actually the plan to not bring Shafilea home back to the UK. Their plan for her was for her to be left there in Pakistan. So when Iftikhar and Fazana were trying to find Shafilea a husband for this arranged marriage, they were having a really hard time finding someone because everyone in the village or the town that they were staying in knew of Shafilea's disobedience and they just knew her as this trouble, rebellious child, daughter, dishonorable daughter, and who wants that? Who wants that in their family? No husband's going to marry a dishonorable wife. This made Iftikhar and Fazana just so angry, obviously, with Shafilea because no one wanted an arranged marriage with their daughter. So all this was just piling on top of poor Shafilea. She was being abused by her parents, for starters. She was forced to Pakistan when she didn't even want to go. She was being forced into an arranged marriage. Now everybody's judging her for not being a good wife, even though she doesn't even want to be a wife to anyone here. They have all her passports, all her IDs. She can't escape at all. And she just feels so depressed and she actually starts feeling suicidal. And she just feels that suicide is her only way out of this miserable life. Shafilea's sister, who was also on the Pakistan trip with the family, said that on one evening her mother, Fazana, had made a remark to Shafilea in front of, in a group setting, in front of a bunch of other people, and it just pushed Shafilea over the edge. Apparently, Fazana said something along the lines of, "You're staying in Pakistan and you're never coming back," to Shafilea. And again, this was in a group setting in front of everyone. Shafilea then just, that was it for her. And she got up, ran to the bathroom, grabbed a bottle of bleach and drank it. Shafilea's sister then said that everybody could hear a lot of yelling and screaming and everyone ran over to the bathroom to see what was going on, and Shafilea was standing there with her hands on her tummy because she was in pain, and there was a bottle of bleach with the cap off and everyone knew what had obviously happened. She drank the bleach. So they rushed Shafilea to the hospital and she was obviously in a life-threatening state, and Fazana just didn't seem to care. She was actually mad at Shafilea for causing a scene. She also told Shafilea that she shouldn't tell people that she drank the bleach on purpose. Like, no, doesn't look good for us on our family that you drank the bleach on purpose. You should tell people that in the darkness you accidentally mixed up the mouthwash and the bleach, and you were supposed to be washing your mouth out, but you accidentally picked up the bleach instead, and this is why you drank the bleach. Such an evil mother. Shafilea was obviously seriously injured from this incident, and she did survive, but she had just horrible burns through like all her throat, her mouth, her esophagus. She couldn't eat. She was just in a really awful state. So then, if things aren't bad enough already, her parents left her there in the Pakistani hospital by herself and flew home to the UK without her. And on top of that, Iftikhar, her father, cashed in her return plane ticket home. So Shafilea was left in the Pakistani hospital all by herself. She had no like immediate family with her. She only had her Pakistani family and relatives there who lived there. So the hospital that Shafilea was in Pakistan couldn't really help her any further. Like, they weren't advanced enough in their medical field or their equipment that they had there to aid her recovery. They needed to get her to a better hospital somewhere else. And Shafilea was just deteriorating by the day because she just couldn't receive the help that she needed. She was very sick. So her family in Pakistan called Iftikhar and Fazana saying like, hey, you need to come get your daughter now and take her back to the UK for appropriate recovery and medical assistance because this hospital here in Pakistan can't help her. So Iftikhar then buys Shafilea a return plane ticket and she is rushed back to the UK and admitted to a hospital there to take on her recovery, I guess, for several weeks. The doctors and nurses in the UK were obviously asking Shafilea and I think the family, like, how did she do this? Like, how did she drink the bleach? Like, they had questions. And again, as I said before, Iftikhar and Fazana just made Shafilea tell the doctors and the nurses and the staff, I mistook it for mouthwash. I didn't realize I was drinking the bleach. Her parents were in the hospital apparently day in and day out. They were, in her room. They were guarding her. They were not letting her talk to anyone. But no one really suspected anything. They just thought, oh, well, yep, she mixed up the bottles. It was an accident. And these look like very loving parents. They're sitting with her day in, night out. They obviously really care about her and want her to get better. So in the end, when Shafilea was ready to be discharged, they let her leave with her parents. And back to the family home they go again, and the cycle is just ready to start again. Her parents enrolled her in a new school because they didn't want Shafilea going back to her trouble ways. And she also started a part-time job at a call center after school. According to Shafilia's sister, who testified in court later, she says that the arguments became less, frequent between Shafilea and Fazana and Iftikhar. Seemed to sort of like boil down. It was not so hectic in the household as much, but that only lasted a very short time. An argument sparked up again when Fazana picked up Shafilea one night from her call center job and she was wearing a t-shirt. And this was a big no-no. You weren't allowed to wear a t-shirt because this was not traditional Pakistani conservative attire. So Fazana flipped her shit. She was not happy, and she was not happy because apparently there was a car full of people next to them in the parking lot and they had seen Shafilea wearing a t-shirt. And this was just the end of the world. So we're back to the start of the cycle all over again. As I just said before, the traditional clothing arguments started up again. Therefore, the abuse started up again. Therefore, they withheld Shafilea from going to school. When Shafilea's friends came and knocked on the front door to see if Shafilea wanted to come out, to see if she was okay or see if she was actually at home, they were quickly told to leave by Iftikhar and Fazana. They just didn't want anything to do with Shafilea's friends. They didn't want them snooping around the house. Shafilea was just being isolated all over again. Suddenly, in early September 2003, Shafilea just disappears. People knew that Shafilea had run away multiple times, so that's what her parents said. They just said, well, she's just run away again. It's no biggie. People definitely started to notice when she didn't turn back up because in all the other runaway cases Shafilea had, she'd always turned back up again. and this time she was not turning up, and her best friend was very, very concerned. Teachers were then concerned and started to get a little bit suspicious. Rumors of her whereabouts started up at her school, and people were saying that her parents had done something to her. Shafelea's younger sisters actually started coming to school and telling people that their parents, Iftikhar and Fazana, had killed Shafilea. And then they would giggle and laugh about it and say, no, we're just joking. We don't really know where she is. So after hearing all these rumors and noticing Shafilea is not at school and not anywhere, and hearing what her sisters were saying, even though they were saying that they were joking, the school said, okay, no, like, we got to take this into our own hands, and they raised the suspicion to the police. So police went and interviewed Iftikhar and Fazana. I don't think they were particularly cooperative. They said, again, we don't know, she's just run away. I think that was their excuse. They also interviewed Shafelea's friends from school, which I think a couple of them alerted the police to the fact she had mentioned she had a negative relationship with her parents. So they were sort of starting to get suspicious, trying to put two and two together. So the cops then look into some CCTV footage around the town that they live in, because at the moment she was just missing, and they just wanted to know if she's still in town at least, or is she completely left town. So they had a look around, but they just couldn't see her anywhere on any CCTV footage. It just seemed as though she was nowhere. She'd vanished completely. When the cops asked Iftikhar and Fazana why they hadn't reported their daughter Shafilea missing in the first place, because if you remember, it was the school that alerted the police to the fact that she was missing and wasn't turning up. They didn't report her missing. Iftikhar said, we just assumed that she'd run off with a boyfriend and staying there. It's just really odd that he decided to use that as an excuse, because she was definitely not allowed to date. Like, that was a complete no-no. She wasn't even allowed to associate with guys or talk to guys. She couldn't even have their numbers in her phone. So why would he use that as an excuse? Is just weird. Plus, they couldn't even name a boyfriend. Like, nothing came of that. No money from Shafelea's bank account was being withdrawn, so she wasn't using any money, and none of her friends knew that she was going to run away. She hadn't mentioned, I'm running away, to anybody. Just no one knew where she was. So obviously the word got out to the community, and the press were running a lot of stories on this, because she was a young girl and she was missing. And Iftikhar and Fazana were getting really angry about this, because they did not like how they were being portrayed by the media. They thought it was very racist, and they were very sick of the police coming and knocking on their door. So they hired a lawyer. Suspicious. People started thinking, okay, well, you know what? Maybe we're not just looking for a missing girl. Maybe we are looking for a girl that has been killed. And then the press started linking the parents into this and their culture, I think. This is what I'm getting at from online. And then the press started writing about honor killings. And then Iftikhar and Fazana were, very, very furious, because they just thought everyone was being racist, and they did not like the fact they were being linked to an honor killing and their daughter's murder, apparently. So they were very, very upset, and they did not want to be associated with their daughter's disappearance at all. The police were also getting a bit suspicious of Fazana and Iftikhar. They actually started doing press conferences without them, because usually the family will appeal to their missing child, and the police just started doing appeals without them. They were basically saying yeah, we're sus of you. We're going to do appeals without you. In one of these press conferences, Iftikhar and Fazana barged in with their lawyer, and they were just yelling at the police saying, you're racist, and expressed how angry they were about this, and they were frustrated that they were being viewed as a person of interest in their daughter's disappearance. And they made a big ha-hoo about it. It was quite a slow process in gaining any evidence, because without evidence they couldn't charge the Ahmeds for anything. They did bug Iftikhar and Fazana's phones, and apparently there were some interesting conversations that they had that probably anyone could pinpoint that they were guilty on some level, but they weren't saying technically incriminating things, so they couldn't be charged for it. So flashing forward to February in 2003, which was 5 months after Shafilea Ahmed was first noticed to be missing, a discovery was made that opened the case wide open again. A couple of workers had made a pretty grim discovery, unfortunately, up on the River Kent in Cumbria. A dismembered body had washed up on the riverbank and been found, and this was because of some very large floods that had happened, so it had been washed down the river, and at this stage the body was very, very badly decomposed. It was so badly decomposed that the coroner could not distinguish the cause of death when the body was brought in. DNA tests were done, and a gold bracelet as well as a ring was found with the body, and after all this was examined, it was concluded that this was the body of 17-year-old Shafilea Ahmed. It was clear that Shafilea had been murdered. I mean, like, you don't just end up in a river dismembered this way for no reason. So this missing persons inquiry shifted to a murder inquiry. There was no physical damage to the body that could identify the way Shafilea was murdered. Like, there was no broken bones, no head injuries or anything like that. So this led people to believe that she must have been suffocated or strangled to death. So Iftikhar and Fazana were then arrested on like the suspicion that they had something to do with their daughter's death, but they weren't under arrest for long because they couldn't press any charges because they didn't have enough evidence. So they were released on bail and the investigation continued from there. A funeral was held for Shafilea in 2004, which had a lot of her extended family in attendance. And one thing to note that I saw on a documentary that I watched on this case, they mentioned that literally none of her extended family spoke out about this. They all stayed silent, even though they assumed that a lot of her extended family would have known that it was Iftikhar and Fazana. They had something to do with it, and no one spoke out about it at all. And they were saying in this documentary that because they stayed silent, it was basically just reinforcing this behavior or this honor kind of system that they had. What they were saying in the documentary was that it was kind of showing their kids, like, you know what, you do not dishonor your family, you follow the tradition, or you'll end up like Shafilea. And I just thought that was very interesting because none of them spoke out about it, and no one said anything about Iftikhar and Fazana. So years and years go on and there is no further advancements with this case. There's less coverage of it as well on the news and in the papers. But in 2010, which was 7 years after Shafilea's murder, there was a break-in at the Ahmed home. Apparently, 3 males had turned up at the Ahmed's home and tied them up and demanded jewelry, money, like all that kind of stuff, and they had a gun as well. After this ordeal had taken place, Iftikhar and Fazana survived this attack. They reported it and they said that they had suspicion that one of their daughter's friends had something to do with it, and that their second daughter, they felt, had orchestrated this whole plan to rob them. Their second daughter was actually arrested for this robbery break-in thing, and while she was with police, she requested to talk to them about a separate matter, which was what really happened to her sister, Shafilea Ahmed. So I don't know if she orchestrated this plan to actually rob her parents because she wanted like their money or their jewelry or wanted them gone out of her life, or if she orchestrated the plan so she would get arrested and be with the police so then she could finally open up to them. Maybe she was not allowed to leave the home because she had very close tabs on her, you know, with her everyday life, just like Shafilea had. So maybe she was unable to go to the police herself to talk about it. I'm not really sure why she did that. And for years and years and years, Shafelea's siblings were forced to keep their mouths shut about what happened to Shafilea. They just were scared as well to come out, and they just had a horrible home life, I think, as well. I have no idea if it was the same level of abuse verbally and physically as Shafilea endured, but they definitely had a hard home life as well. One of the siblings actually confided in a family friend saying that she was also not allowed to associate with particular people. They had close tabs on her phone, who she texted, who she called. She couldn't go wherever she wanted. Her life she felt trapped in her life as well. And she also told the family friend what Shafilea would endure, all the physical and verbal abuse. She would be locked up in rooms, apparently. She was telling her everything. The sister said that she knew or felt that she was in danger, and she knew that Shafilea was also in danger before her death as well. So the second sister is in the police station after she's been arrested for this robbery, and they have been waiting for this for so long, for one of the family members to come forward and finally tell all the details about what happened that night to Shafilea. It had been weighing on this girl's mind for years and years about what she had witnessed her sister go through that night, and finally this was actually enough to charge Iftikhar and Fazana and go to trial. Shafilea's sister was the key prosecution witness at this trial, and originally people were actually quite scared that she would stand up and then say nothing, like change her mind and just have so much fear about coming out, what would happen to her if she told people, because she was told to keep her mouth shut from her parents for so long. But that didn't happen. She gave her testimony up on the stand. She was actually screened from her parents, so they couldn't see her while she testified because she was just so scared of what they would say. Well, I get they can't really talk in court, but she was just scared to testify in front of them with them watching her. So her testimony went as follows. As I said earlier, Fazana went to pick up Shafilea from her part-time job at the call center when she realized Shafilea was wearing a t-shirt when she came out to the car, which exposed her arms. And this just infuriated Fazana because, as we've said through the whole thing, this was not traditional Pakistani attire. A t-shirt was a no-go, and it was disrespectful. She calls Shafilea names, they argue all the way home, and then they argue when they enter into the household, which is where Iftikhar gets involved as well. I think the physical abuse might have started and a fight, began, and Fazana at this point had just had enough completely, and she said something along the lines of, "Let's finish it here." The sister then describes how her parents pinned Shafilea down on a couch, stuffed a plastic bag into her mouth, and suffocated her by putting their hands over her nose and mouth until she died. They killed Shafilea in front of their other children as well, and this was obviously a way to condition them, and they were basically showing them, don't act like her, don't disrespect our family, don't dishonor our family name, or this is what you're going to end up like too. Someone then saw Iftikhar put something in the car and then drive away, and then Fazana actually climbed into bed, because this was at nighttime, with all the children and just went to sleep like nothing ever happened, even though they had witnessed everything. How awful and creepy is that, to just have witnessed your mother kill your sister and then she just climbs into bed with you like nothing happened. Fazana actually changed her statement and her role in this whole thing while the trial was going over her part in this whole situation. She suddenly changed to victim and blamed her husband Iftikhar for everything. She said it was Iftikhar, he was abusing her on that night, he killed her. I just didn't say anything because he said that I would end up like that too, and that he would abuse me, and I didn't want to get hit. But no one in the jury or anything believed her pathetic excuses. So on the 3rd of August 2012, Iftikhar and Fazana were both convicted and sentenced to a minimum of 25 years each with no parole. The judge on the trial, who was Mr. Justice Roderick Evans, said, quote, "An expectation that she lived in a sealed cultural environment separate from the culture of the country in which she lived was unrealistic, destructive, and cruel." And from there, they were escorted off to prison to serve their sentences. And with them being in prison, that brings us to the end of this case. I don't really know much about the siblings. I know some of them are unnamed, but I'm glad their parents are locked up. Some of the siblings still side with their parents. I don't know if to this day, but I know in the courtroom they were very upset when they were sent off to prison. I don't know why they support their parents when they killed their sister, but anyway, they're obviously quite conditioned by them. It's just such an unfortunate case because Shafilea clearly had so much to give, and she had so many aspirations and goals for her life. She really wanted to make something for herself and get out of this family rut that they had going on. So I think she really could have brought something really great to the world, and unfortunately her life was very short-lived. Some people say it was an honor killing, other people say it was just flat out murder. This is sort of a similar assumption of another case that I have covered, the murders of Amina and Sarah Saeed. I'll link that one in the description box as well, and it'll be in the card somewhere in this video too if you wanted to check that one out. Some people say that was an honor killing as well. Other people say no, it was just flat out murder. There seem to be a lot of honor aspects in this case. Let me know your thoughts on this case down below. Respectfully, of course, I'd love to discuss with you guys, and if you have any other case suggestions for me, then feel free to leave them down below in the comments. Give this video a like if you want to see more true crime videos for me. I know it might not seem like your like will do much, but it really does help me out, and I love seeing you guys interacting with my videos. Makes me so happy and makes me want to create more content for you guys. Get this case out there so more people can learn about it. If you haven't already subscribed, then definitely subscribe so you can't miss any of my other videos that I pop up in the coming weeks. And otherwise, thank you for watching my video today, and I hope to see you in my next one.